For me, Bitcoin, the capital B, is the blockchain or the monetary network to serve 8 billion people.
He was mining Bitcoin on stage and really didn't know if this was going to work out. The audience thought it was probably a prank. The odds of finding one was like 1 in 1,000. And when it happened, everybody went berserk. Welcome back to The Root of All Success. I am your host, the real Jason Duncan. And tonight, here at the Standard Club in Nashville, Tennessee, we're doing something we haven't done before. We're recording in front of a live, I wouldn't say studio, that'd be too much, but we're a live audience behind the cameras. This is what's interesting is that when the show started back in 2020, this is episode number 350. When I started it, I recorded my first episodes in person here in Nashville at the Standard Club. Josh Smith, who's the proprietor, who happens to be behind one of the cameras, sitting on the couch behind the camera, is here. He allowed me to do that, and now here we are recording the first time ever in front of an audience. The audience is the Leadership Society, and I've been blessed to lead the Leadership Society here at the Standard for the last 4 or 5 years, and we got a bunch of good guys here tonight. But let me tell you about our guest. Our guest tonight is Rod Roudi, and he's the co-founder of a little thing called Bitcoin Park, which is a community campus for mission-oriented Bitcoiners, builders, freedom fighters that started with 20 people on a rainy night, and he's going to tell a little bit about that story in just a few minutes. Bitcoin Park is down on Hillsboro Road in, where's that? Is it Hillsboro Village?
Hillsboro Village,
yeah. So it's right here in Nashville. For those of you in Nashville, if you're watching and you're not from Nashville, look up Bitcoin Park. You can go to bitcoinpark.com and check it out. It's pretty cool. They got one here in Nashville and one in Austin. But Rod Roudi, welcome to The Root of All Success, and thanks for being our guinea pig for the first time we've ever done this.
Man, I'm so excited. Thank you for having me.
Well, glad you're here. So take us back to that rainy night.
Yeah.
You've got rainy night. There's a girl named Mills, and
Yep.
there's about 20 people in the room. And what did you see that happened in that room that made you feel like, okay, this is something worth investing in?
So we're at Jackalope Brewery, just to set the stage. It's in the WeHo area here in Nashville, Tennessee. And, I've never even organized a meetup. I mean, by the way, this was before even Bitcoin Park existed. My friend and I were like, we love Bitcoin. We love everything about Bitcoin. Let's see if we can get a group of people just to have beers and talk about Bitcoin. And what started with just her and I turned out to be about 15 or so folks. It was rainy, and it was just so amazing. There was people from all different walks. I mean, people from traveling in for a conference from Philadelphia to other people. Heck, we had this one guy, his name's Dr. FOMO on Twitter. And he was like, it came up to me afterwards, and he was like, you don't understand how awesome this was. And I was like, tell me why. He's like, my wife honestly thinks I'm so crazy because all I talk about is Bitcoin, and we live like, an hour outside of town, and I just have all these Bitcoin friends on Twitter, but you guys actually exist in real life. So this is so amazing for me. And, Jason, we started with that meetup. Then the next month we had another meetup with 100 people came in.
What year was this?
This was like August of 2021, I want to say.
Okay.
And then next thing in September, we did another meetup. It got a couple other friends to come in town. And then it was about 100 people. And I was like, holy smokes, 100 people coming to a Bitcoin-focused meetup. And then the next month we had like 150 people. And then the next month it just kept on growing and growing. And to the point where I was like, man, I think we got something here with the community here in Nashville, Tennessee. And we needed a place for us to kind of work, learn, collaborate, and build. And then you fast forward to about like April-ish timeframe. I called my friend who's a commercial broker in town. He was one of the guys that brought the In-N-Out folks here. And I was like, Byron, he never sells me on anything. And I was like, hey, in 2, 3, 4 years, I need a unicorn property. I need a place that has a podcast studio because my friends have some really big time podcasts locally. I need an event space because we were hosting all these awesome meetups. I need a place for us to co-work because there's all these amazing builders that are coming to Nashville, moving to Nashville now because of this small community we have. And then I need like a bar, like area that, we could serve coffee and so on. And he was like, Rod, I think I have the spot for you.
Of course he did.
Of course he did. But this one, the band Florida Georgia Line, are you familiar with them? So they did an unbelievable job with this place. They had 2 buildings, these beautiful 4-square buildings. And there's a lot of history that I can get into as well with those buildings. And they kitted them out like none other. There's sound treatment in every room. The the furnishings of like the chairs to the tables to everything was just immaculate. But they needed to exit the property, and
Because they broke up.
because they broke up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
they're like, we're done. Somebody else
Yeah,
can
so
have
this
the
was like
building.
all under the radar and all this stuff, and I was like, oh my gosh, let's see what happens. And then, long story long, we were able to get it.
Yeah, and it's a killer space. So, if you listeners or viewers, if you're watching this on YouTube or Spotify, go check out Bitcoin Park here in Nashville. If
Yeah.
you're in Nashville, it's a really cool building.
If I can give this shameless plug, what I would recommend is just go to bitcoinpark.com, but /Nashville and join our meetup page, because it's actually not open to the public. So you join any of our meetups. So that's the one area I'm really focused on, as you mentioned in the opening, which was very kind, is supporting and accelerating the grassroots freedom tech adoption. So 80% of what we do is free and open to the public. So these are meetups from like Bitcoin 101s to 102s to learning how to custody your own Bitcoin, learning about mining Bitcoin, to how to like acquire Bitcoin in a privacy preserving manner, to a number of things. Because man, I even have to tell this audience like we're talking about Bitcoin. Some people are like, "What are we even doing here?"
Yeah,
And
we
so
got to
on.
get into that for sure.
But like, I've been, you mentioned you haven't done politics. I didn't even know like who our senators were. And then next thing you know, we got both Senator Haggerty and Senator Blackburn coming through the park. We got Governor Lee coming through the park, Commissioner McCorder and his entire team who run the ECD, to Attorney General Scarmetti. The list goes on. And we have like, I mean, not to give the shill for Tennessee, but we have some of the best people, business-wise, policymaker-wise, just capital allocator-wise here in Tennessee, which I'm very bullish on.
Well, speaking of business, I mean, you were a tech exec, and you were pretty safe there. I mean,
Very safe.
everything is good. What made you decide, "Hey, okay, I'm going to leave all that and go do this Bitcoin Park thing"? How did that come about?
So beforehand, it was kind of weird. I didn't even have a kid at the time. Now I have 4 kids, 7, 5, 4, and 3. So my life is pretty jam-packed. That's an understatement. But I honestly was just like, tech was great, and I learned great connections, learned a lot, but it wasn't as fulfilling, right? And it wasn't like really mission oriented for me. And so I was just like, what like is going to move me? And I had this weird dream about my legacy, and I didn't even have a kid at the time, but it was like a nightmare where like those. Did you have kids as well?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah, a lot older than your kids.
Okay. But they go to like second grade and they're standing in front. My dad helps a lot of people buy things that they don't need or have the money for. And I'm like, man, I'm helping these large companies sell more stuff to consumers and so on. So it wasn't really that fulfilling. But with Bitcoin, it was just so amazing. I mean, we'll get into the monetary world and talk
Yeah.
about how money works maybe, but if you go down this rabbit hole in terms of Bitcoin, the technology, the capital B, the monetary network, or a lot of people call it the blockchain, and then think about how money works for the entire world and how privileged we are here in the United States. Like you probably have a mortgage or have access to mortgage debt accounts like that. You probably have credit cards. Probably have checking accounts. I'm very fortunate to have all those access to all those things. But I want to say like 80, 90% of the world doesn't have access to that. Even in the US, it's like unbanked, underbanked is like the majority of the US. But if you insert Bitcoin, freedom money that is censorship resistant and permissionless across any jurisdiction, it's pretty phenomenal. So in just one example, you may have some folks that like, let's say they're, and I'm making up, you could put any country, but you're working here in this country, and let's say you're from El Salvador, and you want to go send some remittances back home. Well, what you do is, let's say you're unbanked or underbanked, you don't have access to that checking account, and more so, they don't have access to a bank account that's USD denominated in their country. They'd have to go to a Western Union or any of those places and go, and let's say it's $100, so then there's a $15 fee or $20 fee, so it's $80. But the story doesn't end even there, which is actually pretty surprising. That $80 that goes to the Western Union or whatever in El Salvador, let's say it's in San Salvador, let's say you're in that town 45 minutes outside, you take a bus ride, let's say it's $1, and you go all the way up. So now you're already, whatever, it's from 100 down to $80, now you're down to $79. So you get your money, and maybe there's a $5 fee just to get your money, so now you're down to $74. A lot of these places are not the most safe places. So you got some guy outside waiting to be like, hey, Mr. Jason, don't worry, I'll protect you. Just give me $7 because I know you just went into the Western Union. So that $74 now just became $67. You get on the bus, you make a stop on the bus ride because gang members are saying, hey, like, we're here for your safety. Bus ride's going to get all the way home. So now that $67 becomes $42. And now when you get home after 5-6 hours of bus rides, now you have $42 of the $100 that that person made. And how much time that took and energy. Now, if you have Bitcoin, permissionless money, you download a wallet. I can send you money over a permissionless blockchain, no third-party involvement, and that person can go take it and then use that money. So that $100 is $99.89 or whatever it is, whatever the transaction fees are. I think that's one of the coolest things about Bitcoin and permissionless money that we can expand on.
So, all right, but same scenario to play devil's advocate. What if that person doesn't have a cell phone or access to the internet?
So they're probably in a much harder position, but like there are ways now that you can actually get Bitcoin without even access to the internet. I mean, there's just much more convoluted ways. If they don't have access to the internet, their probably education is a lot, resource allocation or resource access is much less. So in that one edge case, I wouldn't, I mean, it'd be a number of other things that I'd be trying to figure out
Yeah.
for that.
Well,
that
they
group.
probably wouldn't have done the work. They wouldn't have been able to do the work. They would have got them the $100
Totally.
to begin with.
And to piggyback off that, the communication of the person in the U.S., they'd probably work within their local community to figure out a way for that person to go get into the next town over, or somebody to be like, hey, you got to learn Bitcoin to go get this wallet downloaded here and try to figure it out.
So let's talk about Bitcoin, just basics.
Totally.
So we'll do a 101 really, really fast. What is Bitcoin? Like if
Yeah.
you just 1-2 sentences, what is it?
Bitcoin to me is freedom money. But like why Bitcoin to me is it preserves my future purchasing power better than any other investable asset ever created. So, okay, that's a pretty bold statement. You know, people here probably invest in real estate. They probably invest in other assets like gold. They probably buy stocks and so on. Maybe I can break down what money is in 5 aspects. So there's what makes a great money is divisibility, acceptability, verifiability, portability, and scarcity. All right, let's compare it to gold. So what gold, and by the way, I'll talk pro on gold for a second. Why do people care about gold? Because of the history. There's such a history amongst gold. We can all talk in this room, even though I may have this gold ring. I hope it's gold ring. You know, and we'll talk about that in a second. But there's so much history with gold that there's a perceived scarcity with gold. There's a perceived value of gold because over the entire world, we can go to any country and just say, hey, this is gold. You assign some value to it. Okay, great. But let's talk about divisibility right now. If I wanted to break down gold into some chunk to buy, I'd have to have specialized equipment for that. With Bitcoin, I can break it down to a fraction of a penny and send that to you in terms of value. Okay, so I'd put 1 point to Bitcoin there. So history, gold gets the check. Bitcoin's history, January 3rd, 2009 was the first Bitcoin block mined. So whatever the date is, 15 years or no, now 17 years. Wow,
Yeah.
That's awesome. So history goes to gold, but divisibility I would put squarely in the Bitcoin camp. Let's go to verifiability. I joked that I hope this is gold, but I have to go to a third party and pay that person to verify the authenticity of this gold, this ring. I have to have a piece of paper. Maybe they wrap it in some certain like element that it's like sealed. So there's like a assigned third party validation on this. But with Bitcoin, there's the blockchain I mentioned. There's no third party intermediary. You can go on the Bitcoin public ledger right now and see every single transaction that has ever occurred on the Bitcoin blockchain. So I mentioned January 3rd, 2009, the first block was mined. So that now, since then, I don't know what block height we're at right now, but 800, 900,000 blocks have been mined right now on top of that. So we can go back and verify the supply and every single transaction that supports the supply right now. So there's on verifiability, I'd put another check on the Bitcoin side. All right, acceptability. The big joke early days of Bitcoin, which I fell for as well, unfortunately, was like, You can't buy a cup of coffee with Bitcoin. I was just like, yeah, you're right. You can't buy a cup of coffee with Bitcoin. Why would I invest in Bitcoin? That's so dumb. Well, nowadays, you definitely can buy multiple cups of coffee. And around the world, they're using Bitcoin quite a bit. I mean, if you're familiar with the Square terminals right now,
Yeah.
you can literally turn on accepting Bitcoin. And you can tap or scan a QR code and pay with Bitcoin. And the merchant actually can take 100% of that Bitcoin in dollars, auto-magically converted into dollars. So you, Jason Duncan, don't have to worry about me giving you Bitcoin because it goes into USD. And by the way, as a small business owner, my expenses are fiat denominated or dollar denominated. So majority of what I'm taking in, even in Bitcoin, I actually convert into dollars as well because I have to pay great guys like Andrew, to pay other expenses as well. So, but on the acceptability side, I don't know. Has anyone bought like a cup of coffee with gold or used gold to buy anything? Um,
Not since 1971 we came off the gold standard.
August 15th, 1971,
Yeah.
which we can talk about the history of
Yeah.
money. By the way, I knew nothing about money. I just assumed money was money, and like there was like these guys would like manage our money, the Fed, and I trusted paying taxes, and it was a badge of honor, and so on. Now I'm just like eyes wide open on the whole system, and I still think the U.S. monetary system is the best monetary system in the world.
Yeah.
And I think we're super lucky to be involved in it. But I think we also need to be, we need an accountability partner to keep them honest. And I think Bitcoin does that.
So, well, let me interrupt though. It sounds to me like everything you're talking about still comes back to dollars, right? So help me
yeah.
understand that because I get what you're saying. Hey, Bitcoin does this, but it seems like everything still comes back to dollars.
So we're only 17 years in, still so early. The entire system is fiat denominated.
Right.
So I mentioned like my expenses are fiat denominated, so I'm using those to pay there. And the key point that I mentioned at the beginning was it preserves my future purchasing power better than any other investable asset. So I just keep dollars in order to pay short-term expenses. But, and we'll talk about the liquidity of like real estate investments and some other investments as well. But just to close the loop on acceptability, I would just, again, firmly put a check in Bitcoins. Portability. I don't. So just 100%, I don't. But I could have $1 billion worth of Bitcoin right now with 12 words saved in my head. And I can move freely around, and so on. If I had $1 billion worth of gold, I'd have to call up Hedgeseth and be like, hey, buddy, I need some help. We got to get some boys together and we got to move this stuff around. And I don't know how much money it costs to call the army, but probably a lot of money to move that kind of stuff. So when you think about it, and by the way, also, let's say you had, I don't know, $100,000 worth of gold. What's the weight of those gold bars in your backpack? What's the costliness of just moving that? The energy to move that? I mean, scan a QR code, I could send you $1 bajillion worth of Bitcoin on the Bitcoin blockchain.
You're welcome to do so.
Yeah, there you go. And you'll send it back to me, right?
Some of it.
There you go.
There's a handling fee.
But the most, so portability, again, I would put squarely in Bitcoin's favor. Before I get into scarcity, I'll say this. Gold, from a history standpoint, is right now arguably the market is saying gold is 10 times of a better store of value and preserving future purchasing power than Bitcoin right now. And that's where I see the misallocation or the mispricing, and it's a massive opportunity for all of us, even in this room. But scarcity is the big reason. So with gold, there's a perceived scarcity. We believe that gold is scarce. Why? Because it costs so much money to dig into the ground to find gold. There's a lot of costliness associated with it. But every single day, we find more gold. Do you know what's the total supply of gold?
I have no idea.
Neither do I, and neither does anybody in this room. And if anyone tells you that the supply of gold, they're lying to you. But I can tell you the supply of Bitcoin is going to be 21 million Bitcoin, and by the year of 2140, all of the Bitcoin will be mined. But you know what, Jason? You don't even have to trust me. You can run the free and open source software, the Bitcoin blockchain, on your own computer and verify yourself, since you can basically download the blockchain and verify every single transaction from January 3rd, 2009, that your copy matches every single copy, all what's called nodes, all the nodes that are running globally. How cool is that? And so where there's gold, where there's perceived scarcity, there's provable scarcity with Bitcoin. So that's like an insane check, not only just check, but it's a checkmate, in my opinion, on the difference between Bitcoin and gold in terms of a store of value. And this is where I actually have done Bitcoin a disservice by just comparing it to gold and a store of value, because it is truly magic internet money. And what I mean by that is it's also a medium of exchange. So instead of now having a gold bar that I have to now take it into dollars somehow with a third party exchange or do whatever magic I need to do to get it into dollars to use it, I can actually use Bitcoin. When I go to Nairobi, Kenya, I'm using Bitcoin. When we were just in El Salvador, I'm using Bitcoin. When I was in Nosara, Costa Rica, I'm using Bitcoin. Even in the US, I'm using Bitcoin. So, to your point where you're like, well, it's fiat denominated expenses, absolutely. And I think we may be here for a long time with dollar denominated expenses. But there will be a breaking point where on the merchant side, I'm actually very bullish on this. I don't know how many merchants are in the room, but who enjoys paying 3% to Amex or Visa or any of those clowns?
No.
Nobody does. Okay, what if that 3% came straight back to you? And a lot of these folks are doing serious business, like you, sir. You're probably doing serious business on drink sales and so on. Imagine when you go look at your QuickBooks account or whatever ERP you got, and you're like, holy smokes, if that 3% actually stayed to my bottom line, what would that mean for my business? What kind of reinvestment would I make in my own local business, my own local community, and more just eye-popping? And so that's where I'm super passionate about, especially on the entrepreneur side, is to help them figure out ways that they can reallocate those costs in a better way that increases the experience for the customer as well.
You've mentioned fiat backed. I don't know how you worded it, but you use the word fiat a lot, and I know it's thrown around a lot. Would you please define that for us?
So just fiat is untethered like money that is printable by any centralized governing body. Like fiat, we don't know what the supply of money is today.
Yeah.
Right? How this is a better question, because they do provide the M2 supply and M1 supply, whatever it is. But we don't know what the money supply is going to be tomorrow. Do you know what the money supply is going to be in the next administration or the administration after that? So I don't even want to tell whether it's Democrats or Republicans. It doesn't really matter. With Bitcoin, I know what the supply is going to be on a provable schedule or a determined schedule. Every 2 weeks, there's what's called the difficulty adjustment. So it helps determine what the block schedule is going to be. So on average, every 10 minutes, a Bitcoin block is mined. And then there's what's called the block reward, which we don't have to get into all that jazz, but that's how we get to the supply distribution of the 21 million Bitcoin.
But is it fiat just like I guess the common answer is it's just money that we decide what it's worth. There's nothing backing
100%.
it. It's just decided. But by that definition, Bitcoin's the same thing.
So 100%, it is supported around a common group of people we agree that this is worth $1. The problem with the fiat currency is I wake up at 4:25 every morning. I go straight to Starbucks. At 4:32 I'm there. I order a venti.
They're open?
That's the only one the two ones, West End and that one, and sometimes that one's closed because of whatever reason.
I'm asleep. I don't know.
There you go. I'll wake you up. No problem. But at 4:33 I'm there, 4:32, and I order my venti pike coffee. 5-6 years ago, it was like $1.93 or something like that. Today, it's $3.57. So we all agree that $1 is $1, but it doesn't matter because the cost of goods to purchase that good that I want. So people are like, well, make coffee at home or do it. It preserves my future. Bitcoin preserves my future purchasing power to live the life I've always imagined. I want the coffee at that point in time. I want to work towards that. I don't want it to run away such that I'm trying to make even more money just to have the same quality of life that I have. So, but let's take it one step back. There's a big joke in the outside community about, oh, remember in 2010, that guy bought 2 pizzas for 10,000 Bitcoin, right? Do you remember that?
I remember, yeah.
Okay. So people are like, man, that guy's an idiot. Well, hindsight's a bitch. Yeah, if I knew about Bitcoin then, I would have kept 10,000 Bitcoin too. But in 2010, I thought it was stupid, JPEG money. And in 2013, I still thought it was stupid. Up until 2017, I finally thought it was something. So I make this point is because those 10,000 Bitcoin on that pizza, now it costs, I don't know how many Bitcoin just to buy a single family home. Let's say a single family home is roughly $300,000, I would say. So what is that? 5 Bitcoin now? So let's just do that, Jason. The 10,000 Bitcoin on 2 pizzas, 5 Bitcoin now buys a single family home. 2010 to 2026, so that's 16 years. Coffee in 2010 was maybe $1, let's just call it, the venti pike. And now a coffee in 2026 is $3.97. That actually went up in dollars, right? In terms, I had to actually make more dollars. I didn't have to make more Bitcoin to go buy from 2 pizzas to a single family home.
But isn't that just the opposite side of that same scale? I don't think you can do it both ways because the dollar devalued.
Correct.
But the USD value of Bitcoin goes up because the dollar devalued. Would you agree?
So I would agree to a portion that the USD dollar purchasing power devalued, but then more people also got to the value of Bitcoin in terms of those 5 things that make up money.
Right.
So to your point, which you're absolutely spot on, we need more people to learn about Bitcoin. That's why I'm so passionate about. So I love everybody around the world. I love you guys, all of the hundreds of thousands of viewers and so on. I want you to learn about Bitcoin, but I truly care about this local community in Nashville as well as Austin, but really Nashville, that's where I raised my kids, so that we can learn about Bitcoin and we can get stronger and our purchasing power can get stronger. You know the concept of blue zones? It's like blue zones where like a lot of healthy people live to centurions and they're 100 years old because they socialize together, they exercise together, they eat well together. Well, I want to create like an orange zone here in Nashville where we just, and again, it's up to your own, after tonight, you're like, all right, still Rod, it's crazy and I don't want to even do Bitcoin. Totally, you're more power to you. But maybe there's 1 or 2 people here that are like, you know what, I'm going to go learn a little bit about Bitcoin. I'm going to go buy a little bit of Bitcoin. I'm going to go use Bitcoin the next day. Then all of a sudden they're going down this rabbit hole and they're helping educate their family and their community and their business and their employees. And then next thing you know, it's kind of like, think about it, right? And you mentioned the AI stuff. The internet is so amazing, by the way. So the internet is just made up of free and open source protocols. So SMTP is Smart Mail Transfer Protocol. You know, I'm not going to date you, but you do have an AOL account or don't have?
Never had one.
Okay, there you go.
I might have had one in '95.
There you go. Yeah. So AOL, that gentleman may have a Gmail, you may have a Yahoo, I have an Outlook email. But you don't know that. You send me emails and I receive it and I send you an email back and then you send it around. That goes around the Smart Mail Transfer Protocol. The application layer is Outlook, Gmail, Yahoo and AOL. That's the application layer that there's. But and then FTP for file transfer protocol and all these different protocols that make up the internet. What's missing from the internet? The money protocol. So the money protocol that's missing from the internet is Bitcoin, the blockchain. So Bitcoin is the money protocol that is for 8 billion people in this room. And we, in this room, get a play. You can't invest in SMTP. You can't invest in FTP. Imagine owning a piece of that asset that actually had value. We get to own a piece of the money protocol, which is Bitcoin.
Pull your mic back up.
Oh, yeah.
So before we get back to the conversation, I want to take just a minute to talk to everybody listening and watching. If you're an entrepreneur, which I assume you are, because a lot of people listen to the show, listen for the entrepreneurial stories, I want you to ask yourself a question. If you were to take 30 days and had no contact with anybody at your business, what would happen to your company? Now, the sad truth is for most people, it would not be good. Things would probably go awry. Even if the company survived, it's probably not going to be doing very well after 30 days. So if you want to know how to deal with that, I put together a 6-minute video that answers and at least gets you to whets the appetite on what that might look like. And all you got to do is go to what to fix before you exit. whattofixbeforeyouexit.com, 6-minute video, help you answer that question. Now, before we get back to Rod and talk more Bitcoin, and I want to talk about AI too, because you got the AI Freedom Lab. I want to get into that. I want to thank our sponsor for today's episode, Bank on Yourself. So he's talked a lot about financial sovereignty, and we've talked about how to get decoupled from the U.S. financial system. Even though it is good for what it does, How cool would it be if all your financial system was decoupled from banks? How would you like to bank on yourself? How would you like to have the ability to have all your money grow infinitely? Infinite compounding interest, no matter what you do with it. You can borrow it, you can pay it back or not. It's your money. You get to decide what to do with it. You become your own banker. How about that? If you want to learn how to do it, you can get a free 15-minute consult with one of the experts that I trust and whom I've been using for the last 5 or 6 years. All you got to do is go to therealjasonduncan.com/bank on yourself. Therealjasonduncan.com/bank on yourself. Set up a free 15-minute consult and find out how you can get free from banks. So speaking of free from banks, let's talk some more with Rod.
Yeah.
So Rod, and I want to call you Rod Roudi. The first time I saw your name, Roudi, I was like, it's Rowdy, right? And I go, no, it's Rudy. I think Rowdy's kind of cool. You like Rowdy, Rod Roudi. Anyway, so on AI Freedom Lab, this is something that you've kind of put together with Bitcoin Park.
That's right.
Why? I mean, I think I see why, but tell me why.
So you mentioned I feel like as an entrepreneur, my life's just flipped upside down with the tools that we have at our disposal. I mean, we have basically super intelligence at our fingertips, and it is unbelievable right now. It's also kind of scary how much data is going into these platforms. And so there's a saying in Bitcoin called not your keys, not your coin. So if you're not custodying your own Bitcoin, you're entrusting a third party to trust it. It's not really your Bitcoin, it's just paper Bitcoin, or maybe they have it. There's been this is the bad side of the crypto industry, is entrusting third parties or trying to replicate the existing financial system. FTX and a bunch of these crypto pump and dump coins, meme coins or whatever. But so not your keys, not your coin. But in AI, I'm kind of thinking through this, especially as I use it all the time. I mean, I wear out my Claude Code subscription. I send screenshots to the team. I'm like, I've hit my weekly limit. I don't know what to do. I'm going to go for a walk now, or something.
That's a part I hate about Claude. What, they got to give us the limits? I'm paying for this thing. Let me keep
you could actually hit the increase usage, but I'm too cheap to do it right now. But yeah, I agree. That's why you got to roll it into the next codex or whatever. But not your memory, not your brain. And so that's where I think we all just need to be cognizant of the information that we're putting in and the tools that we're using. So, and I'm working on and this is such a new concept, but the AI Freedom Lab is really building AI on your own terms. Whether you want to use, the open AIs, the Claudes, the Perplexities, and so on, or there's alternatives like a privacy preserving AIs like Maple AI. I have a goal to live to 160 years old healthy. So I quit drinking 798 days ago. I try to get a perfect sleep score. I try to do all of these things like eating wise and exercise wise and so on. But I don't want to put all my health data, into any of these apps, because God forbid I get an ad or they just know XYZ about me, or my insurance. Insurance is going to go up because of whatever, things that I got going on. So we just got to be careful and cognizant about it. And so we're going to be hosting a number of free and open meetups focused on AI. OpenClaw, are you messing around with OpenClaw much?
Okay. I'm trying.
Okay. It is unbelievable. And so that's where, you brought up, and I'm thankful you brought up that story about August, the rainy night with the 15 people. We've just hosted some of these small meetups, and that energy feels like the exact same as we hosted the Bitcoin meetups back then. The amount of enthusiasm, the amount of entrepreneurship that is in this space is unbelievable. So why, now this convergence between Bitcoin and AI is going to be absolutely unbelievable. What are the agents going to use for money? So I don't know in this room how many folks are using agents right now, but we use it quite a bit. For them to use a monetary network, actually you should ask your AI, hey, if you had to choose a money, which one would you choose? Oh, the smarter models will say Bitcoin because it's censorship resistant and permissionless. There's no backseas on the money. So they cannot get, the agent or the robot cannot get rugged from the counterparty on their money because it's a one way. So you got to just be careful about that. But that's where I see, do you know who Kathy Wood is by chance from ARK? Okay, so she's the CEO and CIO of ARK Invest. She's one of Elon's largest investors. I do a monthly Bitcoin podcast with her called Bitcoin Brainstorm. And so Kathy has been amazing, and she's always at the frontier of a lot of this stuff. And she's like, Rod, Bitcoin, AI, energy, and then she goes on a number of other things like robotics. There's a convergence happening. So this past September, I hosted a new experience I've called Imagine If. If you're familiar with the Fisher Center for Performing Arts, it was there. We hosted about 500 capital allocators, entrepreneurs, developers, really amazing people from all around the world. And that's where I think this world is going. Is I truly believe we're not maybe in 15 years we don't even talk about Bitcoin. We just talk about money. Maybe even 15 years we don't talk about AI. We just talk about intelligence. And then the next wave, I think, is on energy. I don't even think we talk about or debate, oh, is this nuclear energy, coal energy, or whatever. I think we just say that's power on or power off. And I think the world is going to just be so amazing. And it's just the abundance of opportunities are going to just be absolutely amazing.
So we talked a little bit at the top of the show about what Bitcoin is, and you mentioned capital B, little b with blockchain. I want to get a little bit technical on that, and then we're going to start getting back into your story as we get ready to wrap up. And then for those that are here live, we're going to stay around for another hour and do Q&A. So you got to come to do the live stuff if you want more information about this. But so what's the deal with blockchain and Bitcoin, and how are they connected?
Totally. And by the way, even though I'm focused on Bitcoin, my time, capital, and reputation is focused all in on Bitcoin. You should learn about like what makes a cryptocurrency, what makes a meme coin, and why is all that out there, and then just compare it to Bitcoin. I think that's a good like action item from here. For me, Bitcoin, the capital B, is the blockchain or the monetary network to serve 8 billion people. Like the monetary network to transfer value. So I mentioned, how Square Terminal, I can scan a QR code, pay with Bitcoin, and it could automatically convert into dollars for the merchant. That's going over the Bitcoin monetary network. That's pretty cool. It doesn't go over Visa rails or anything like that. It goes over the Bitcoin monetary network. Bitcoin, the lowercase b, is the reserve asset. That is where I preserve my future purchasing power better than any other investable asset. So that's where there's fixed cap of 21 million Bitcoin. By the way, my family's in real estate. I love real estate, but just to give a quick comparison to real estate, and again, it just pains me because when I was growing up at the kitchen table with my grandfather, you got to own real estate. That's the best way you can preserve and we're immigrant family, and so on. So I was like, okay, American dream. This is the way, buy real estate. And I did. And I owned quite a bit of real estate. But there's problems with real estate. Maintenance, depreciation. And I don't even want to get me started on the property tax here. It's gosh. And hopefully Governor Lee's like sorting that out right now. But it's crazy. These are things outside of my control, right? And so when you add up all these things, and for what? Perceived appreciation in the asset that is actually pegged to the dollar. So when we're doing that whole comparison with the pizzas and the Bitcoin, and then the coffee with the dollars and so on, you look at the house as well in terms of the appreciation value of those properties. Well, you get better appreciation than you do on some of these other assets. Maybe not the stock market, but maybe it depends on what you. But the biggest one is around liquidity. Bitcoin is liquid 24/7. There's no like, oh, hey, the bank's closed, you can't really sell Bitcoin. I could literally transfer Bitcoin to you at 2 a.m. And actually, you don't even have to be. I just have to know your address that I can send it to,
right?
Which is pretty amazing. I mean, you could liquidate it with a HELOC and do all this stuff, but you're taking on interest and all that. But it's just again more work, more people involved, more costliness associated with it. That's why I'm in love with Bitcoin. If you can take the time just to do a little research, and so who Stanley Druckenmiller is by chance. He's the one that with George Soros just destroyed I think it was like the silver or whatever. They made some crazy trade that like killed the British pounder. I think I got my story right there. Anyways, he's an insane famous investor, and he had one statement which I wish, if the movie Back to the Future, like, oh, what would you do back in the future? I'd be like, go back to 2010 when I thought Bitcoin was stupid, and put a Stanley Druckenmiller quote on my computer and say, invest, then investigate. Don't just write it off and be like, oh, that's stupid because my friends I read a New York Times article that said it was like dumb, or, terrorists only use, scammers only use Bitcoin. Just invest, then investigate. Invest a little bit. a week later, a month later, you think it's dumb, sell it and get your money back. Or you mean like maybe you made a little bit or you maybe lost a little bit, and so on. But I don't think there's anything more or better I could be working on than Bitcoin and now AI.
So you've had a lot of success moving from out of the tech world and as an exec into now running Bitcoin Park, and your passion for Bitcoin is definitely there. Everybody can see it and feel it and hear it. So what do you consider has been the key that has unlocked success for you more than anything else as you've been pursuing what you're building with Bitcoin Park?
So I actually like that question a lot. I would I would say I finally found something that gives me energy. Meaning like I've only been waking up at 4:25 for the last like 3-ish years. I was like a 7 a.m., ready to go, drink, whatever. I wasn't really as motivated to just get out of bed and just seize the day. Now I couldn't even think of anything else I would want to work on right now. And so hopefully that's a way to answer your question. But like if you find purpose and what gives you energy, then you'll be unstoppable. And honestly, the people at the park that are members, they're some of the most amazing people, Jason. Like the most amazing creative thinkers, the most of creative doers, the most amazing people. And it just, once you get into that melting pot of people, and it's like a gravitational force that attracts other quality people, and just magic happens.
So how do you define the word success? This is the name of the show is the root of all success. This is
Yeah.
much more topical conversation tonight because of the setting. I usually get more into the personal stories and how you became successful, but we're going to jump right to it. How do you define that word success?
So I would define the word success as the freedom to choose the life you've always imagined. So I get to choose to be here tonight. Thank the invite that you gave me. I'm really appreciative. But and all of us, I'm really appreciative of everyone here that they chose to spend their time with us tonight. But you could have been, it's a pretty nice day. We could have been hitting golf balls right now. We could have been doing a number of different things. But the freedom to choose where you spend your time is the ultimate sign of success.
Well, based on that definition, do you consider yourself successful?
So, it's funny. If you asked me 4 weeks ago, I would say absolutely, because my schedule was like pretty nailed down. I'm pretty hardcore about and I'm still hardcore about my schedule. And don't get me wrong, but with this AI stuff, honestly, Jay, and all of us as entrepreneurs and business owners and so on, I would put your head on a swivel right now. Like this is real talk because the world is changing right in front of us in a way that I cannot even imagine. Jack, let go of 4,000 people over at Block. In his note, he said, "Hey, yes, we did have a little bit of bloat, but it was due to the AI work that they're doing internally, as well as what he predicts in the future." So I think the way of work is going to absolutely and fundamentally change. I don't think it's a net negative. I think it's actually going to be a major net positive. But the way we get to that net positive is going to be scary. It's going to be tumultuous. And so over the last 4 weeks, I've never coded really anything in my life. I mean, unless, I was like an HTML advisor back in college in like the early 2000s. That was the last time I was in a code base. Now, my GitHub has like 1 million stars or whatever. I don't even know how they rate me or whatever, because I'm writing CEO dashboards. We're working on all these other things, and we're canceling all these SaaS subscriptions that we no longer need anymore because we can just tool it ourselves.
That's awesome, man.
It is so awesome. I mean, that's where I definitely research, invest, and then investigate in Bitcoin. But if you're not, I'm using ChatGPT to do some cursory searches and so on, so that's great. But your example is a really great one. You use it in a very thoughtful way. You have Perplexity for research. Great. You have ChatGPT on the go taking a picture. What is this? What is that? Great. And I forgot what your third one was. Maybe Claude. Yeah. For some other work, maybe whatever you're doing. And so I would recommend really challenging yourself as a operator to get into the weeds. So that's where, I own my schedule and I feel like I own it, but I'm cautiously optimistic about the future, but I'm also nervous and I need to get back hardcore into the pilot seat to learn all this stuff. And the only way I can learn this is being like next to Andrew and being like, hey man, APM stand up. Like, what are all these things we got to be doing? Like, where are the blockers? How do we get the agents to now to do this stuff and give us more time to be able to do more on the business?
All right. Well, this has been a very interesting conversation, and I want to get to a rapid fire close.
Please.
So I got 3 or 4 questions. First of the rapid fire question before we finish up today: Bitcoin hits $1 million.
Yes.
What are you doing the very next morning?
First of all, what year is this, you think?
Whenever it hits.
Whenever? Okay. Why so bearish, by the way? Can I ask you a question back?
That's just the question that I decided to ask.
No. But the reason why, and I'm sorry it's not rapid fire, because even $1 million I think is a bearish number. Why is that? Well, I just explained how 10 times Bitcoin is better preserving your future purchasing power than gold. That's 10 times. So Bitcoin's market price is $60-some thousand. That means a spot market price of 600,000. Okay, we're just starting the arena. Real estate. I explained how Bitcoin's a better at preserving your future purchase power than real estate. Real estate's a 200 to 300 trillion market cap. That's 200 to 300 times more valuable than Bitcoin right now. Take 10 of that, 10 times. So we're now at $6 million a coin or whatever. Okay, well, let's touch all the other silver. Let's touch collectibles. That's $5 trillion. We're going to eat. It is the apex predator that's going to eat it all away. So $1 million, what do I do?
Sounds like you do nothing different
I
because
really
you think
do.
it's going to keep going.
Yeah, so I live a pretty modest life, and the things that I aspire for. Okay, so not to get philosophical a little bit, that's where I think people need to Bitcoin will change you fundamentally. Like it has changed me. It has made me value my time insanely more. It made me value my relationships so much more, my health so much more, and then also I do much more with my kids, much more with my wife, and so nothing would really change in that regard. I want my kids to go to these Catholic private schools. I want to do a couple vacations here and there. Maybe we go and get the bigger suite at the hotel or whatever, maybe, but nothing really changes other than hopefully I'm a great dad and a great husband raising great kids.
Good answer. All right. Best meal in Nashville.
Best meal in Nashville. So we are very fortunate to know a number of restaurateurs. So, because we through the AI Hack for Freedom and then a couple other events, we buy out a number of restaurants in town. The best is Standard. I haven't had a meal yet, but I'm excited to put that.
We're going to have a meal here at the Standard Club.
So
that's
Locust, I got to give my friend Max a big shout out, Max Goldberg. Locust is a great meal. The new sushi restaurant what's the name of that place in 12 South? Sushi-san.
Sushi-san. I didn't know this.
Yeah,
I love
Sushi-san is on a new restaurant in 12 South. And I love Nashville. My kids are 8th generation Tennesseans. I am long Nashville. That's why I did Bitcoin Park, really. The missing piece was there's just no good sushi here in town.
Yeah.
I moved from New York 15 years ago, and I was just like, oh, that's a bummer. But Sushi-san.
All right, we got to go. You and I got to go get some sushi. I love it. All right, one book, non-Bitcoin, that changed the way you think.
The Millionaire Mind by Dr. Thomas Stanley just comes right off the bat. I think that's a great book I read early on. Dalai Lama is a great book. Any of the Neil Stephenson books are great as well.
Last question. One person, dead or alive, that you want to do a co-working table at Bitcoin Park for 1 week.
It'd probably be Elon.
Really?
I love that. Yeah, and Elon, I think, will come to. I mean, he's been to Nashville before, and I think he'll. Especially what we're doing between Bitcoin, AI, and energy, I think that'll be a non-search chance.
Well, Rod, it's been a pleasure talking to you, and we're going to keep the cameras rolling here just a couple minutes. But before we get off the show, the recorded portion of this is going to go out on the podcast. I want everybody to know how to get in touch with you and how to get in touch with Bitcoin Park, because I know you just riled up some people that want to know a little bit more about what you got going on. So tell us how to get in touch.
I appreciate it. And first, thank you so much. I know this is the first episode, and I thought this was awesome. Thanks for everybody in the audience for being here. Honestly, bitcoinpark.com, go to any of our meetups, and then the AI Freedom Lab as well. But just shoot me an email, rod@bitcoinpark.com, if you have any questions. And we'd love to see you at any of our free and open meetups.
Congratulations on all your success and what you're building. I know I can see the passion in you.
Thank you.
And I wish more people had that. So congrats, man.
Thank you very much.
Well, there you have it. That's another really great story about someone building something worth paying attention to. And you can obviously see Rod's passion about what he's building with with Bitcoin Park. And I have been to Bitcoin Park, the one here in Nashville, and it is really a clever concept and really cool. Of course, the building's cool too. The Florida Georgia line, they did really do a good job of that building. But I want you to go check it out. Go check out Bitcoin Park. And if there's something that you're passionate about, one of the things he said is invest first, investigate later. I think that's really clever. So maybe there's something you need to invest in and then go investigate it later. Make sure you tune in again next week when I talk with yet another very successful entrepreneur about his or her journey to success. Until then, as always, I am your host, the real Jason Duncan, and Jesus is King.
Attention business owners. Attention business owners. Feeling burnout from running your business? Uncertain if you're nearing burnout? Take our free 10-question business burnout test at businessburnouttest.com to discover where you stand. With just 10 quick questions, you'll learn how to immediately begin making changes to regain freedom and success. Cut your daily operations time in half. Improve your quality of life and prepare your business for your future exit without losing revenue or profit. Visit businessburnouttest.com now and take the test. Thank you for listening to another edition of The Root of All Success with the real Jason Duncan. If you've enjoyed this week's episode, visit therootofallsuccess.com to access the show notes and other helpful resources. Follow Jason on social media at The Real Jason Duncan. See you again next time here on The Root of All Success.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.